Hello everybody, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if this is your first time popping in to see me. I like to make videos about tarot and oracle decks, reviews, how to learn tarot, how to read tarot, and tangentially I like to talk about decks coming out and all of that good stuff. I have a series that I do here on my channel called Hot Takes on upcoming tarot and oracle deck releases, and in that series I tend to talk a lot about Kickstarter campaigns, and I thought it would be really useful to share with you some of my thoughts, suggestions, tips about backing projects on Kickstarter, especially if you're new to the platform. So I have a hot cup of tea. I hope you have something delicious to eat or drink. We're gonna have just a casual chit-chatty video about all this because I have a lot to say. So if you have been curious about what it's like to back a deck or other project on Kickstarter, and you kind of want to know what to look out for, pros and cons, that kind of thing, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's get into it. My tea is very hot. So let's start off by talking about what Kickstarter is, and also very specifically what it is not. And this can get muddied a bit when we're talking about tarot and oracle decks, because tarot and oracle decks have blown up on Kickstarter in the last couple of years. I backed my first ever tarot deck on Kickstarter in 2017, I believe, and it was the last Unicorn Tarot, a licensed deck that was created by Geekify. It was a really unique experience, but it was also not at all what I thought and expected. And since then, I've had a number of experiences, good, neutral, not so great. And those things combined have really taught me a lot about what matters to me on a Kickstarter campaign, what doesn't, and all that good stuff. But before I get into all those details, let's just start out by talking about what Kickstarter's all about, what it's for, and what backing a deck really means. So Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform, and essentially what that means from my understanding is that it's when somebody wants to create something, do something, and they don't have the funds themselves, so they basically ask people to believe in them and support their project so that they can make it happen. And the idea is that with Kickstarter, you're supporting a creator, you're not purchasing a product. And I know it doesn't seem like that and it doesn't look like that, and that can actually create a lot of confusion for people. I wanted to clear all of that up as much as I can based on my own experience. When you purchase a product, you might go to a creator or a publisher or somebody's website, or you might go into a store, you hand over money, they hand you a product, and the transaction is completed, right? With Kickstarter and crowdfunding campaigns, it's a lot different. The idea is that somebody comes to you and says, I'm trying to raise money to make a project happen. And when that project happens, I'm going to thank you for your support by providing you a perk of some kind. Now, nowadays on Kickstarter and sites like it, often that perk is a thing that you are basically wanting to purchase, but you're not really directly purchasing an item. And again, it doesn't always look like that. And I think it's important to understand the distinction, to really understand what you're getting yourself into when you back a project on Kickstarter. The thing about crowdfunding is that what you're really doing is saying, I trust you, the person that I'm giving my money to complete this project that you have outlined. You've laid out a plan. You're like, this is what I'm going to create. And I trust you to create that thing, complete that thing, and then deliver to me the perk or the product that I am getting in return for supporting you when you don't have a product yet. When you're going into a store to buy something, that product has already been made. The person who made it has already outlaid all the funds. They've already produced the thing. It's physically in existence. But when you crowdfund a project, you're helping the creator or the publisher of that thing to make the thing. And so until they have your money and everybody else's money and they have enough money to make the thing happen, the thing isn't in existence yet. It's an idea, or it's partway along the process, but the real push to get it to the finish line is what the crowdfunding is all about. It's collecting all of these funds from people who believe in you to say, okay, now that I've got all this money, I can get this thing to production and I can complete it and then I can ship it out to you. The reason that it's really important to understand why Kickstarters are different or crowdfunding is different than buying a product is because there's a lot of variables in that situation. When you hand somebody your money to give you a product that already exists, all they have to do is hand you the product or ship you the product. But when you're handing somebody your money so that they can produce a product, you want to be able to trust that person to actually produce the product and produce it the way that they've said that they're going to produce it. And along the ways, there can be all kinds of things that come up that are outside of the creator's control, and there's things that come up that are within the creator's control. So a lot of Kickstarter is about recognizing that there is an element of risk, and I want to underscore that because I think it's really easy to go to a Kickstarter campaign and feel as though you're simply purchasing a product. I do that myself, but the way your mindset is around it will be different if you understand that what you're really doing is backing a creator and getting a product as a thank you. In a lot of ways, a Kickstarter campaign resembles a pre-order. And in fact, when creators are going to publish a thing, they will often kind of go back and forth. Do I do a pre-order on my website, or do I go through Kickstarter and crowdfund? Let me tell you what the differences are so you kind of understand what's going on. With a pre-order, often you're saying, I'm going to collect orders for a set period of time so that I can gauge how many people are buying this thing, and then I know how many to order from, say, my printer or my manufacturer, and then I order those things, and then when they come in, I ship them out. That's effectively how a pre-order works. With a Kickstarter campaign or a crowdfunding campaign, you set the goal for how much money you're basically raising to be able to produce the product. And with Kickstarter specifically, it's an all or nothing proposal, which means that if somebody creates a Kickstarter campaign and they say they need $10,000 to be able to print their product, and they don't get $10,000 raised through Kickstarter, they get nothing. So how Kickstarter works is you set your goal as a creator, you set what goal you're trying to reach. And if you come in at $9,999, you get nothing. No money gets taken out of people's wallets or credit cards. Nothing happens. Kickstarter is saying, I have a fundraising goal essentially to be able to produce this product. And if I hit that goal, I will then be able to produce the product. Yay, everybody's credit cards get charged at the end, and I'll talk about more about how that works in a moment. Everybody's credit cards get charged, and the money comes into the creator. They receive those funds after a couple of weeks of the close of the campaign, and then they're able to then place their order with their printer or their manufacturer. That's sort of how it works in a nutshell. The all or nothing piece, I don't know if that's unique to Kickstarter, but it is how Kickstarter works. I believe that other crowdfunding campaigns such as Indiegogo, whatever funds are raised during the crowdfunding campaign, the creator can still keep. I think the neat thing about Kickstarter doing an all or nothing situation for creators is that ideally a creator has set a goal that is like, I need at least this much money to be able to produce this thing. And so I think Kickstarter's logic, and I'm just guessing because I don't work for Kickstarter, but my assumption is that the way it works is that it's a lower risk to the people who back the project to say that if this creator doesn't meet that goal, then they're less likely to be able to produce the product or produce it at the quality that they want, and therefore it's a bigger risk to the person backing it. Therefore, Kickstarter's situation is that if the creator does not meet their funding goal, they get nothing. And that's just an important thing to be aware of so that you can make an informed decision when you decide whether or not you want to jump in on a Kickstarter to help support a creator who's trying to get a project off the ground. Now, with that said, think of Kickstarter campaigns like startups. And if you know anything about the tech industry or small business, you understand that startups come with a certain amount of risk. When I'm trying to get an idea off the ground, if you've ever watched a show like Dragon's Den, or I don't know, what other shows are there like that? Somebody help me out in the comments. But if you've ever watched a show like that, then you know that a lot of times people have a big idea, or they have a concept, or they have put a lot of work into sort of creating a thing, and they have conceptualized it. Maybe they've done a lot of work, maybe they've only done a little bit of work, but they have an idea, they want to bring it to market, or they want to create it and put it out into the world, but they don't have the capital. They don't have the kind of money in their bank account to be able to take a risk and produce the thing because they just don't have those assets. So most of the people coming to Kickstarter don't have cash on hand to be able to just throw it at a printer or a manufacturer and create their product. So they come to Kickstarter and say, hi, I'd like to make a thing, and here's how much money I need to pull together to be able to make that thing. And your end as a backer often just kind of looks like you're pre-ordering the thing. But I think it's important to know that what you're really doing is helping a project get off the ground. And that is got its pros and its cons, and we're going to talk about those. But one really important thing you need to know up front is that everything that you can do, change your mind on, go back and forth on, all of that can only happen while the campaign is active. So typically a creator will run a campaign that can run anywhere from, I think, 2 weeks to like 8 weeks or something along those lines. There's like a period of time. Most Kickstarter campaigns run for 3 to 4 weeks from what I've seen. And in that period of time, that is the only period of time in which you can get in on the campaign and participate in it. And once that campaign is over, you'll have to wait and see if there'll be an opportunity to maybe get the thing later or whatever. But during that campaign period is the period in which you can say, I'd like to come in and I'd like to help be a part of this. I want to support this creator. And There are actually multiple ways to support a creator during a Kickstarter campaign. You can back the project simply because you believe in it and you want to help, and that is just basically like donating. You can give any amount of money you like with no reward and no kickback due to you. You just say, hey, I want to throw some money at you to help you reach your campaign goal. And that's much like any other kind of GoFundMe or any other kind of campaign sort of deal. And then there's tiers, and the creator of the campaign will set up reward tiers. Now, for things like tarot decks, usually what you're going to see is something like tier 1 is just the deck, tier 2 might be 2 decks, tier 3 might be a deck and a cloth, or a deck and a bag, or something like that. There's different ways that people set up different tiers, and the more tiers that there are, the more options there are for you to decide at what level you want to support the creator. And the creator is in turn promising you that they're going to give you the thing that you have said that they've said they're going to give you if they are successful in their campaign. But during that campaign period, you can decide you want to get in and back tier 1, for example, which is just the deck. And as you're watching the campaign, you'll get updates throughout. And maybe by the end, you're like, maybe it's not finished yet and you're really pumped about this project and you've got a friend and now you want to get 2 decks. Well, you can go back in and you can update your pledge. Similarly, if you haven't been seeing any updates from the creator, more on that in a moment, or you're feeling uncomfortable or you realize maybe this project isn't for me, you have until the end of the campaign, so before the deadline of the campaign, you can decide to cancel your pledge. In all of that time, no money has left your bank account. Nothing has been charged to your credit card. All you've done is said, this is the payment method I'm going to use. Please take this money out of this account when the campaign closes, if it's successful. But you have that whole period of time to sort of decide, go back and forth. I mean, I'm going to be honest, having talked to a lot of creators, I will say it seems mildly stressful, maybe lots stressful, to see people back and then cancel and then back and then cancel. But I'm pointing out that you can do that, right? Like that is an option. You're not locked in until the end of the campaign, at which point your card will be charged only if the creator meets their funding goal. I think a lot of people get confused about how Kickstarter works, and I'm hoping that I can demystify it a little bit. And I know I'm a little all over the place because this is one of those chit-chatty, I'm sipping tea, I'm hanging out with you all kind of videos, but I will do my best to summarize a bit near the end. So I've sort of covered, I think, the difference between backing and shopping, or backing and purchasing a product. When you're backing, you're really putting your trust in somebody to do what they say they're going to do. And Kickstarter's terms are very clear. You are not purchasing a product. Therefore, Kickstarter is not in any way going to get involved if the person you decided to support bails on you. That's usually not something Kickstarter is going to get involved in at all. Kickstarter says, you decided you trusted this creator, you gave them your money, that's kind of on you, bro. Not to say that people should be in there scamming and doing that kind of thing. That should not be happening. The idea is that Kickstarter is basically just creating a platform where creators can say, hey, do you believe in me? Can you help me support my project and bring it to life? And you, the backer, can choose to do that or to not do that. But it is not as simple as saying you're just purchasing a product. Therefore, if you don't get the product, maybe you backed the wrong creator, but Kickstarter is probably not going to take on too much responsibility for that. So it's just important to understand that there's a certain element of risk, just like investing in a startup company. You believe in the startup company, you give them some of your hard-earned cash thinking that you will get some payoff in the end in the form of some sort of return on your investment. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Now, with all of that being said, I'm not trying to freak you out of Kickstarter. I love Kickstarter. I use it all the time. I have not yet once been completely burned and not received a product that I backed on Kickstarter. I have had delays, I've dealt with waits, again, more on that in a moment. There are drawbacks, there are some things you have to deal with as a backer of Kickstarter. However, I have never been burned. Even Kickstarters that weren't run as smoothly as I maybe would have preferred still got me my stuff in the end, and most of the time it was worth the wait. But it is important to know that you are taking a risk so that you don't go into it all willy-nilly. It's not a good feeling to put your money into something, think you're going to get a thing, and then it doesn't happen. It has happened on Kickstarter. I did actually back one product, now that I think about it, and the creators handled it fine, where I backed a product, and then while we were waiting for the product to be developed and to be created, it was an electronics technology item. While we were waiting for it, the creator ended up selling their IP to another company. So the product never happened. The creator who bought their IP may eventually develop that technology, they might not. But we were basically sort of like, the creator kind of washed their hands of us. They did that as ethically as they could. They gave us all refunds. They processed all of that. But people were upset because they'd been waiting for a product for a really long time, only to find out it wasn't going to happen after all. But I was out no money. And so while it was disappointing, it was handled professionally. So those kinds of things can happen. Aside from that one electronics item, I've never ever not gotten the thing. So, and like I said, that time I was not out any money. In fact, I will say that I've actually been burned on tarot deck pre-orders, but I've never been burned on a tarot deck Kickstarter. And what I'm hoping to do with today's video and this chit chat and hangout is just kind of give you some of the things that I look at to prevent getting burned, like give you some things to be aware of when you're backing so you can feel comfortable with your decision. Now, let's talk about some pros and cons of backing on Kickstarter. No matter what you're passionate about, if you're passionate about something, Kickstarter is probably going to be a pretty cool, fun experience for you as long as you're willing to be a little bit patient. One of the coolest things about backing a product or a project on Kickstarter, in my opinion, is getting to be first in line to see, hold, use, play with, receive, hold in your hands, etc. That thing. That is so cool. If you're really enthusiastic about something, and for me that's tarot and oracle decks, but for somebody else it might be board game. Okay, I'm a little enthusiastic about board games too, but like anything you're excited about, video games are on Kickstarter, board games. Some people collect enamel pins. Some people back art. Whatever it is that you get excited about, there is something really fun and exciting and special about being able to be in on the ground floor of a product or a project that's being created that is of a topic of interest to you, whether it's a new zine or a board game or a tarot deck. It is really rewarding to be able to be first. It's fun to get the first print of something, the first run of something. And there's also some fun little perks as well. Oftentimes Kickstarters come with exclusive items or special treatment for the first run of something. Maybe it's an extra luxurious print run. Maybe it's exclusive cards or a unique box design. And perhaps most practically, most of the time, the Kickstarter price of an item will be a little lower than its full retail price once that product is available after the fact, if it even becomes available after the fact. There are plenty of creators who use Kickstarter to fund a print or production run of something, and they only print or produce enough to fulfill their obligation to their backers, and then they're done. There are also creators who will create something that and then get extra so that they have some to sell later. The pros of backing a Kickstarter, the biggest one, the best one in my opinion, is being able to be in on the ground floor of a product or a project or a deck or a book or whatever it is that is being produced for the very first time. There is something really, really incredible about that if it's something that is in the genre of something that you're really passionate about. Like for me, that's tarot, but for some people it might be video games or board games. I love those too. But really the thing that I back on Kickstarter is tarot and oracle decks. And I have backed some other projects as well. I have a thing in my car that I backed on a Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign once. There's other things I've backed through crowdfunding, but it's really exciting specifically for me for tarot decks to be able to see something come into life for the first time. It's incredibly rewarding, and also it makes me feel good to support products and projects that I personally believe in, or creators whose work I believe in. I mentioned earlier that oftentimes, well always actually, Kickstarter has a tier option to just back something because you believe in it. I have done that multiple times where I maybe don't want this particular tarot deck, but the concept is really cool, or I really like what the creator is doing, and so I give them some cash. Like I back it just without a reward. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And it's really fun to be able to also get the updates from the creator as this thing is being produced, to find out that, oh, there was a hiccup here and here's how it's maybe being dealt with. And maybe I'm a nerd. Maybe that's why I like it so much, but I like seeing those updates. I like finding out when something's going into production, or, oh, it's getting printed now, or, oh, it's on the ship, it's being shipped now, or whatever, you know. I love that stuff. And it's really fun to see the behind the scenes of something like that, and to feel like you're a part of something being created is, again, I find it incredibly rewarding. And that for me is probably the biggest pro. There's all kinds of things that make it a unique and fun experience, but there's also some cons as well. I'll often tell people that if you're not very patient, or if you're in a hurry, or if you're looking for instant gratification or a deck that you can work with right away, Kickstarter's probably not your best bet. Kickstarter campaigns take a little time because the creator is collecting the funds to be able to submit an order. And that is assuming, and we'll talk about this again in a moment, that is assuming that their product is otherwise ready to go to print and they're just waiting for campaign funds to be able to fund the thing. And that's a bit of a mixed bag because sometimes there's a lot of, to get the thing ready to go to print, there's a lot of costs to get it to that point. So it's not always as easy as getting everything ready to go, but for example, with a tarot deck, I like to see the art complete or mostly complete before I back because I know there's going to be a production wait, and I've learned through backing lots of campaigns that I don't really love having to also have an art wait. I like to wait for production, sure, but I like the art to be done or mostly done so that there's not a big delay there. And partly because I think that art is one of those things that we shouldn't rush, that it should happen, you know, in an organic timeline that makes sense. And if a creator is hustling to get the art finished because it wasn't finished yet and they're feeling pressured by deadlines, I just don't want things rushed, basically. That's my thing. I prefer to back campaigns once the art is already finished for tarot decks. Typically that's my preference. Or if it's mostly done, I'm usually pretty good with that too. There can be hiccups. Creators have ideally done their homework and they've done as much as they can to prepare for the campaign, but things change, things go wrong. Maybe a printer that they had goes out of business or has to send everybody home for a couple of months. I mean, we know that COVID did a number on Kickstarter campaigns and backers who were dealing with facilities in other countries, and it just becomes a whole big thing. But there are things that just happen. Maybe a print run is done and there's a huge error and it all has to be redone. Oh God, that sounds horrible. I hope that hasn't actually happened to anybody, but like there are things that happen. Sometimes the ideal version of the deck you had ready to go as a creator, maybe it, you know, you get a sample of it and it's not what you thought and you have to make some last minute changes and you're just hoping everybody's going to be okay with it. You know, there's these decisions that happen. And from what I've seen and heard talking to creators who've been through Kickstarter campaigns, it's not an easy process. It sounds like there's a lot of stress involved. And I think it's just one of those things where you can be as prepared as you can be. And then there's things that just happen. So one of the biggest cons I would say for backing a Kickstarter campaign is just that there can be delays in production, there can be hiccups, things might shift a little from what they were originally planned, and those things are just sort of the thing you sign up for by backing a project from the ground up. But I would say that if we're talking about tips, the most important tip I can give you is to be comfortable with the creator you're backing. It's important to remember you are supporting a creator, not simply buying a product, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. One of the things I like to do when I am getting ready to back a campaign is learn about the creator. Often it's somebody that I already am aware of. Maybe I know them or I followed their artwork through Instagram or YouTube or something like that. But if it's somebody that I don't know about, there's a few things I do to just sort of see if I'm comfortable with them before I back their project. And I wanted to share a couple of those things with you. One thing that I'll do is I'll go and look at their profile. When you click on a creator's profile on their Kickstarter campaign page, it'll pull up a little profile that will have links to their social media or website, and it'll also say whether they have created any projects in the past. So it will say X number created and X number backed. Now, some creators do create new accounts in order to launch a Kickstarter, but oftentimes there are creators who have created multiple projects. So the first thing I do is see if they've ever created anything on Kickstarter before. And if they have, you can click on the number that says how many they've created. You can click on that and it will actually pull up their projects that they've created in the past. The next thing I would do then is look at those projects and read the comments from backers who backed that project. If there's a whole lot of comments about people being really unhappy or not hearing back from the creator or massive delays or not getting their stuff or you know, whatever, hiccups, problems. If I see that stuff in the comments on past campaigns, then I'm probably going to take a minute before I back and see if I'm really ready to take that risk. If, however, you look at their past campaigns and you see that generally people are really happy or you like what they've done before, or you can see evidence that things went smoothly, that can be really reassuring when you're getting ready to back a campaign from somebody you don't know. Now, what if they haven't created anything before? Well, then I look at their social media, I look at their website. I check and see how active they are on their social media platforms. And maybe this isn't entirely fair, but I feel like if I'm going to take a risk on you, I want to know that you actually have done something consistent out there to keep up with people. Another thing that I like to look for is if the campaign is active, are there any posts or updates from the creator? When you look at a campaign, there's the first tab you go to, or the first homepage you go to, describes the campaign and what it's all about and talks about the tiers. But there's other tabs along the top of the Kickstarter page, and one of those is updates. If you click on, there's also an FAQ, which is definitely worth reading through, as well as do read the entire campaign page before you back. I cannot tell you how many times I either backed or almost backed something that if I had read the entire campaign page, I would have known there was something there that wasn't right for me. Maybe it was based on a different system, or that it was all pips or something, right? So always read the campaign page, of course. Check the FAQs, because sometimes creators do use that frequently asked questions section to answer common questions they get, and it can be really handy. And then check the updates tab, because once a creator has launched a campaign, they can make two kinds of updates. One that everybody can see, and another kind of update that only people who have backed the project can see. But it's really useful to see that they have made updates, even just one or two, to show that they're active, they're on the campaign, they're participating. The few times that I've seen campaigns that have looked real sketchy, talk about one of those in a moment, there haven't been any updates from the creator. They launched the campaign, there's nothing. There's no post, they're not responding to comments on the comments tab, they're not active at all. That's a huge red flag. And this is where I want to come back to the point where I said, when you decide to back a product, you have until the campaign ends to pull out of that project. If you get bad vibes, if you're not feeling it, if the creator's not responding to comments, or they're not updating in the campaign page and you get nervous, cancel your pledge. You do not have to stay in a campaign that makes you uncomfortable just because you hit the back button initially. Now, with that said, I have seen one campaign, and I've covered it on this channel before, that hit all of the red flags. And I want to use this as a bit of a case study to tell you what to look out for. Because as far as I'm concerned, this was definitely some kind of money grab, or something terrible, hopefully not, happened to the creator and they just fell off the face of the earth. But I think my suspicion, my gut feeling, and it's alleged, right? I have no way to know for sure because there's been no posts anywhere and nobody seems to be able to find this person. But my gut feel is that it was no good. It was just a money grab. So I will put some B-roll if I can find it up on the screen so that you can see it. But on this campaign, the campaign details themselves were pretty sparse. It was advertising a tarot deck that looked like it would have some cheeky humor, but there was only 2 or 3 images available on the campaign page. No indication of all 78 cards being done, or even all the major arcana being done. There wasn't enough details here at all to be sure what the finished product would even look like. That for me is already a huge red flag. Then when you go to look at the creator and you click on their profile, you see a website link. And if you go to that website link, you'll see that you see the same few images repeated, very little information, and just some really off-putting sort of stuff. It definitely raised a huge red flag for me. Their Kickstarter goal was quite low enough that I'm wondering, could they even produce a deck for that amount of money? And that's the kind of thing that you want to question and think about. And lastly, if you go to the comments section on this campaign, people were asking questions and getting no responses, and the updates page for this creator was absolutely empty. There's an update that Kickstarter creates automatically when your campaign goes live, and another one when it completes. This campaign was successfully funded because the goal was very low and some people backed it, but there was never an update from the creator. Those people's credit cards would have gotten charged, and there's never been any sign or hint that any product was ever produced. This is the kind of thing you want to look out for. Look out for campaigns with very, very poorly fleshed out details, or where it's not clear or it's not adding up how they could produce the thing they say they're going to produce, or really inactive social media accounts or no social media accounts. I know it's a bummer. Not everybody has social media, but you should see enough on the campaign to feel relatively confident that the person that you're supporting is going to do what they say they're going to do. And I think that that's a reasonable thing to do as a consumer who is considering backing a project. Again, if you think of it like supporting a startup business and investing your hard-earned money in a startup business, it's the same. You wouldn't, if somebody just walked up to you and said, "Hey, I'm starting a business. I'm going to sell widgets on the street corner." And you say, "Oh, can I see the widget?" And they're like, "Well, I haven't made it yet." "Oh, okay. Can I see a drawing of the widget?" And they're like, "Well, I kind of have an idea, but I haven't written it down yet." And then you ask them, "Well, how long is it going to take to produce the widget?" "Oh, it should be fine, like 6 months." It's not going to add up. You're going to be like, something's not right here. Maybe I don't want to invest in this business just yet. And it's the same thing for Kickstarter. Just make sure that you feel comfortable, that you feel like you have enough information to feel confident that you're not going to feel slighted or burned if the thing doesn't go through. Now, with that said, there may be campaigns you want to support even if it's a long shot. That's a valid way to use Kickstarter. Sometimes you're like, I really believe in this and I know it's not a guarantee this person's going to be able to do this thing, but I really believe in it and I want to support it. Valid, completely valid. Don't let anybody tell you that's not okay. Just make sure you're making an informed decision. That's it. So what happens if you back a campaign and you don't get the thing that you were promised? Here's the bad news. Kickstarter has in their terms and conditions, and in fact, you have to check a box that says that you understand this before you complete a transaction on Kickstarter up front. Basically, Kickstarter's terms say, yo man, like you're just doing your thing here. We're just the platform. You do you, what you're comfortable with. We are not promising you anything. Basically, Kickstarter treats it as it's at your own risk kind of situation. It's no different than GoFundMe. If you put money into somebody's GoFundMe and it turns out it's a scam, GoFundMe's not really responsible for that. They're just creating a platform for people to ask for money, and you should only give the money to people you trust. It's the same thing with Kickstarter. So just make sure you feel comfortable with what you're doing before you do it. Let's do a quick little recap of what we've covered so far so that you kind of know what the bullet points are here, the too long didn't watch version of this video. First, Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform. It is not a purchasing platform. It's important to remember that you are backing a project and supporting a creator, not necessarily purchasing a product, even though, in theory, you should receive the product that is promised you in return for you backing the campaign. Are we following this so far? So just remember, it's not the same as buying a product. You are backing a campaign, you are supporting a creator, and you are hoping that person's going to do what they say they're going to do. Number 2, there are some pros to doing this. Pros are you get to support something you believe in, be first in line to get it, feel really happy to have it in your hands, get to watch something being produced. It's really rewarding. But there's some cons. It can take a long time, sometimes a lot longer than initially planned for. I've had Kickstarters double or triple the time that they said they were going to take. Ideally, that doesn't happen, but we've had a global pandemic. We have all kinds of crazy things that happen in this world. Sometimes a creator drops the ball. It happens. Ideally, they pick it back up and they figure it out. But things happen. Things go wrong. There's delays. If you're not patient, it's going to be a not fun time for you. And in truth, ideally things would always happen when they say they're going to happen, but life happens. And I've seen it, how many times can I say happen in a sentence? I've seen it a lot. So I'm just saying that's a con. Do your research on the creator. Make sure you're comfortable with them before you back a project. That will guarantee a much better experience for you in the long run. You'll feel a lot more comfortable with your decision. And if you're uncomfortable, don't forget that you have the entire time the campaign is active to change your mind. If the creator's goal is, say, $10,000 or $20,000, but they raise just shy of that amount, no money comes out of your account at all. If they hit that amount, the money doesn't come out until the end of the campaign. So even though they might hit their $20,000 goal 3 days into their campaign, your money doesn't get taken until the campaign's all the way over. So if it's a month-long campaign, your money still doesn't get taken out of your credit card or your bank account until the very, very end when the campaign is over. Because only then, because you have that whole time to pull out of a campaign if you're uncomfortable, only at the end does the creator know and Kickstarter know exactly how much money has been raised. So with that being said, if at any point you're uncomfortable, just remember you can pull out of the campaign at any time until the campaign closes. Once the campaign closes, you are on the hook and need to pay up because that's how that works. It's kind of like, I don't know, bidding on an auction. You're saying, I'm going to pay this money. So then when the campaign ends, the creator is counting on those funds. And it's important that you make sure that things like your credit card details are up to date and all that stuff. So let me try and wrap this up. Kickstarter, crowdfunding, not the same thing as purchasing. Know the risks, know the cons, know the pros. Make sure you make an informed decision, research the creator, and remember that you have the entire period of the campaign to either back the campaign or change your mind. Keep in mind that if you back a campaign at, say, an early bird reward, if you change your mind and pull out, that early bird then becomes available to somebody else, and you probably won't get that back again if you want to go back and back it again. But other than that, basically you can change your mind, you can switch tiers, you can change things, you can go to a lower tier or a higher tier, cancel, back, unback, reback, you can do all of that. Give a creator a mild heart attack, but you can totally do all of that during the campaign period. So do what's right for you no matter what, and know that you have that whole period of time to do it, but make sure you know when that deadline is happening so that you know once you're going to be locked in. So let's talk about what happens if you decide not to back a campaign. Well, there's the obvious. Creators are counting on supporters to be able to produce their thing. If they don't get enough support, they may not be able to produce the thing. That's just the reality of crowdfunding. It is what it is. You have to do what's right for you. Sometimes what happens is that if a campaign doesn't fund at the ideal level that the creator had set for it, they may relaunch their campaign and do that at a lower goal. Often it's important to note that if a creator has to do that, sometimes that means that they need to go back to the drawing board and come back up with a lower goal, meaning they might be producing the deck at a lower quality than they would have if it had funded at their more ideal asking amount. If you don't back a Kickstarter campaign, there's a chance that that thing never happens or that you can't get your hands on it later. Although well-funded projects will often allow creators to get some extra copies of whatever the thing is to sell in their website later or whatnot, there's no guarantee of that, and it's important to be aware that that might not be the case, but sometimes it is the case. Just remember that there is a bit of a gamble either way. When you don't back a Kickstarter campaign, there's a chance that the thing might not happen or that the creator only prints exactly enough to fulfill to backers, plus have some replacements in case of returns. If it's a very well-funded campaign, there's a much higher chance that there will be some maybe left over after the fact, but you can't really count on that the same way. Kickstarter is one of those things where when you see a project on there, it's like the opportunity to get in on something being created. And it comes with all of the pros and cons and associated risks, but it also comes with all of the fun rewards of being able to, later on when the thing eventually gets produced, get it in your hands and realize that you helped make it happen. I mean, there's something really exciting and incredible about that. And I love watching Kickstarter campaigns be successful, even when I don't personally want the product. It's really cool to see people's dreams come true. And I know that sounds super cheesy, y'all. I'm a mushball. What can I say? But I really, really love it. And there have been a couple of times if you've been watching me for a long time, you've probably seen it, where I've seen a project go up on Kickstarter and for whatever reason, it's not getting enough attention and it's a really cool deck. It's something that I think really needs to happen. And there have been 2 or 3 times where I've reached out to creators and been like, I want your deck to happen. What can I do? Can I help? Can I make a video? Can I shout it out? Like, what can I do? And the most exciting, rewarding thing ever is to see those projects come to life, knowing that they were struggling. Like, it's so cool to see people be able to make the thing that's in their heart to make. And I'm not going to say all creators are like perfect and all creators have good intentions. I've already given an example of some that aren't, but I would say that most people who come to Kickstarter are just trying to create something that they want so badly to make possible. And it's just really cool to see that happen and to be a part of it somehow. So I know I've babbled for a really, really long time and my tea is half cold, but I know I've been babbling for a while about all of this, and I hope I've provided clarity and not just a bunch more muddiness. But I know that Kickstarter can seem a little overwhelming if you're new to it, and it can seem a little bit off-putting when you hear people's stories, because there are sometimes campaigns that go bad. But let me tell you, it's not that hard. It really isn't, to avoid problematic projects. It's always a risk. It's always a risk. And I'm sure there's going to be some point when I've done all my research and something happens anyways. I'm sure it's going to happen. And there've been plenty of campaigns where I've been disappointed because it's either not gone the way that I thought it could go or thought it should go, and I've had my opinions. But at the end of the day, I always get the thing at the end. And if I don't, I knew it was my risk to take. And I just, I wanted to shed some light on the process and what my experience has been like. It has been overwhelmingly positive for me personally. And I really enjoy, one more thing, I promise, and then I'll wrap this video up. The last thing that I think is really cool, I should have mentioned this in the pros, but we're just going to put it here. One of the funnest things to me about backing a Kickstarter when I can afford it comfortably and when it's a project that I believe in and a creator I believe in, one of the most fun parts of that is when I kind of semi-intentionally lose track of that project, kind of forget about it. You'll see updates come from the creator and I just kind of don't worry about it. I don't spend too much energy or time on it. And then one day in my mailbox comes this thing that I backed maybe a year ago or 6 months ago or sometimes 2 years ago. And it shows up and it's like getting a present. And I realize I'm not saying this is the way you should think about it. I'm not saying this is smart. This is not financial advice, yo. This is just like a fun thing that I enjoy, which is that I spent that money like a year ago. I forgot about it, or like that money's out of my bank account so long ago, I barely remember. And then this thing shows up and it's like present time. This is probably not a good thing to say on a video, but it gives you some insight into how my brain works, at least. I think it's fun. I don't mind the wait too much. Like I said, the first campaign I ever backed ended up being more than a year overdue, and it just kind of desensitized me, I think, to some of the wait times. But at the end of the day, it's really cool seeing a project come to life. Okay, I think I've gotten all of my tips and thoughts about Kickstarter campaigns out of me in this video. I hope it was somewhat helpful. I hope it shed some light on how this works. In a nutshell, Kickstarter campaigns are a really cool way to help something get off the ground and maybe be one of the first in line to get the thing. And I think that's fun. I enjoy backing projects on Kickstarter. I try to be careful. I try to be selective. I manage my risks, you know, to whatever I'm comfortable with. And that's the thing. If you're very, very risk averse, if hiccups and delays make you anxious or nervous or stressed, it might not be a fun thing for you to back on Kickstarter. But if you're willing to be a little bit patient, it can be so fun and exciting to be a part of something like that. It's just, if you're nosy like me and you want to see in everybody's cupboards, it's cool to see behind the scenes stuff. I think that's part of it for me. I just love it. And I, like I said, have really never regretted backing a Kickstarter, even when they've been terribly delayed, even when I'm frustrated that something didn't get handled the way that I maybe would have liked to see it handled. Even then, there's something really enjoyable about the process for me personally. Your mileage may vary. Please don't do things you're not comfortable with. Please always keep your own budget in mind and your own comfort level in mind, and know what you're comfortable taking chances on and what you aren't. Do your homework, read your campaign pages, and back responsibly. All right, y'all. That is it for this video. Thank you for hanging out with me, sipping tea, talking Kickstarter. I hope this was helpful. I've had a lot of questions about this over the years, and I hope this helps. I have another hot takes on upcoming Tarot and Oracle deck releases coming out very soon, so keep an eye on the channel for that. And hopefully this video has prepped you somewhat for some of those Kickstarters I might be talking about. Thank you all so much. As always, an extra big thank you goes out to my unicorn fam, my channel members. You all are always making it possible to do all of the things I do here, and it means so much. If you are interested in channel membership, we do a ton of fun things over there. We actually are just launching our first ever deck study club, so I've posted about that on my community tab. You can check that out. But we have various tiers. We have the supportive unicorn tier, the magical unicorn tier, and the badass unicorn tier, and each has its own special perks. But every tier you go up gets all the stuff from below that, so you can check that out. There's a link on my channel that says join in the description box, and there's also a button on my channel homepage that you can check out. Sometimes there's also a button underneath this video that you could check out. So I really appreciate all the support I get from channel membership. It really has made a huge difference in me being able to do the projects and do the things for you guys here that I want to be able to do. So thank you all so much. It is a huge blessing to be able to do this here on YouTube. I love this so much, and I appreciate all of you for watching, commenting, liking, subscribing, sharing, all the things you do to support my work here. No matter how small you think it is, makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. And until next time, may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye.